Welcome to the Guthries and Ghani's podcast, episode number 11. My name is Christina and this is my podcast about all of my knitting, stitching and crafting endeavours. So I'd like to jump right in with my sewing projects because I've been doing lots of sewing over the last few days. So I've got some bits to show you. The first project is the Piccadilly Pajamas by Nina Lee. I've been doing the longer version, which is like a 3/4 length capri trouser and the longer sleeve top. So I have totally finished the trousers, which are lovely. I put on an elasticated waistband and top stitched it, which I don't believe the pattern calls for the top stitching. I often do things with patterns where I get to a point and then I just improvise. I just fancy doing something that I've maybe had in a ready-to-wear garment or that I've seen, and so I do it myself. Otherwise it's the same. I use the same pattern and the same finishing. The hem, I didn't use a binding because I didn't think I'd be able to stitch it on thin enough. So I used a piping instead and then added to the inside a facing. So this is a separate piece of fabric, which I just used the main pattern and I just cut out a 4-inch wide strip from the bottom, bagged that out and then put a little herringbone stitch on the end. I'm really happy with how that looks. The fabric details I will put in the down bar. I got the pink cotton from Sew Over at London, and the designer Nina Lee of these pyjamas, she made a sample using this fabric, so I absolutely fell in love with it. I decided to use it myself. I will write the details of the binding below as well because I can't remember. And I don't have the label to hand, but those are done and ready to wear. The top was a little bit more time consuming, so I've got the sleeves, which I did the same the same piping with the little facing, which I really like. And there are kind of a 3/4 length maybe sleeve, which I think are really sweet. And then the bodice, I really just have to sew in the sleeves. Everything is hemmed, and I was working on it yesterday, but it got dark and my sewing machine lamp blew, the bulb blew, so I couldn't finish it, which is a little bit annoying. But it's got its little mandarin collar on, it's got its buttons on, needs a really good press. And it's got its little pocket, which is sweet, and then you've got the hem, exactly the same thing with the facing, just overlocked and then herringbone stitched the edge, which you can't really see on the outside. Really happy with that. And I used just some vintage buttons from my stash, which are mother of pearl. I think that's going to be super pretty. I made one change, so I cut it out in my size, which is, I can't remember the size I used, 14, 16, I'm not sure. Anyway, when I tried it on at work for someone to have a look at it, and I was getting a really big kind of crease through here, so someone has pinned in a dart there for me, which I have stitched in. I will probably need to just try that on again just to make sure that those darts are in the right position. With nightwear, well, with any garments that I make, it's really important to wear it with the right undergarments. With nightwear, you may not wear undergarments, so you have to keep that in mind. So I've tried it with and without, just to make sure, and came up with kind of a happy medium that works either way. It's taken much longer than I thought, but then I don't have an overlocker at home, and I don't have a domestic machine that does at all, and I don't have a way of doing buttonholes unless I do them by hand. So I had them done by one of my colleagues who was really kind enough to do the buttonholes. They did not come out perfectly because the machine that we have is for men's jackets and to finish the cuff buttons here. But I don't really mind. I'm loving those pockets. Very sweet. So I really want to get this finished because I'd like to make some summer dresses, and I don't like to have too many sewing projects all on the go at the same time. I'll forget where I'm up to on that pattern, or any of the problems that I'm having with it. So I think it's really, for me, it's really important to work on one, maybe two projects at a time. If they're both kind of sewing, I can work on a sewing, a knitting, a crochet, you know, all at once. But if I start building up a few projects for sewing, I can't remember where I'm at, what was going wrong, what was going right. So I guess I could just write notes. That would that would kind of help, but I don't. All right, moving on. So Piccadilly Pajamas. All the details about it in the down bar. The other project that I have just started working on, actually, just to give you some backstory about the project. So this new setting is my new little house. We're in the living room at the moment, so there's lots of work to do on it. But I'm living here part-time and then part-time in London in my little box room, which I'm really happy doing at the moment. And I take the train home here on a Sunday night, and then I've got 3 days here before I go back to London. But to catch my train, I have to leave work exactly on the dot, run to get the train, to get the tube, change, run up an escalator, run down another escalator to get onto another tube. It's all a bit of a faff, and it's quite a busy time, and there are a lot of people. So I've tried doing the journey with a suitcase, which was a nightmare because it's so packed that there's not always somewhere to put your I mean, it's only a small suitcase. It doesn't always fit above my head, and then if I put it at the end of the carriage where they've got kind of a shelving bit for luggage, sometimes it's full. And I hate kind of leaving it at the end of the carriage and then I can't really see, and people are getting off at different stops, and I'm just worried someone's going to steal my stuff, which, why would they steal my stuff? Because all they would have is half knitted projects and snacks. But you know, there may very well be someone who likes half knitted objects and snacks. So, long story short, I needed a bag. I tried it with the suitcase, I tried it with the 2 handbags, and was bishing too many people. So I made, quite impressively I think, I made the Desmond backpack by TaylorTailor. It is out of the Millerain wax cotton in the Peacock colour, which I think is really pretty tealy blue, and I got that on the Guthrie and Ghani website, and Lauren, who runs, she is Guthrie and Ghani, she owns the shop, she made the exact same backpack in this colour, but she used, her hardware was an antique bronze, and I just thought that it had a dullness to it, which for me, I wanted that brightness of the silver. So you've got this front pocket, which is quite roomy, which you find often on backpacks, and then you've got the side for water bottles or any kind of bits and bobs. I would not put my purse in that front pocket whatsoever because it would get stolen. So that's kind of Oyster card, maybe a train ticket, maybe a snack, some tissues, I don't know. Things you want easily to hand, but if they got stolen, you wouldn't care. You get into it with the little swivel clips, and inside I used a really lovely cotton fabric which I got from the Crafty Mastermind. There's a card, and I think it's called the Blossom Bouquet colour. I slightly tweaked the inside pocket placement, so you're meant to put 2 little pockets. It's one big pocket with a top stitch kind of down the middle to create 2 compartments, and it's meant to be attached to the back portion of the lining. But for me, if I put small things like keys in there, that would be digging in my back. So I did it just on the opposite side, so it's away from me. And I would probably say iPad in the back, just so something is flat. And you just roll the top down, flip the clips over, yeah, I mean, there were so many small elements that you had to make. You know, you had to make these little straps. That was 2 pattern pieces stitched together. Back kind of turn inside out, pressed flat. Then you had to top stitch on all of this strapping. I looked for strapping for ages. I didn't buy the kit that Guthrie and Ghani do. They do a kit with all the hardware, the strapping, and then they do a discount if you buy the fabric as well. And they do a discount on the pattern from the TaylorTailor website. So if you do go with Guthrie and Ghani and you kind of want to get everything from her, super easy. I just didn't like the bronze, just as my personal preference. It was much easier to make this backpack than I thought it was going to be. I did it within the day. I made a couple of mistakes because I wasn't paying attention. For example, I put the pocket on without putting these little D-rings. So I just had to unpick the pocket, but I'm so happy with this project. I'd become a little bit deflated with my sewing. I'd made a few things too quickly recently, and I wasn't really happy with my end result because we were moving and I didn't have much time. Then I did a project where I had to use a particular fabric, and so I was just when I finished this, it just really made me smile. You know, I got something that's beautiful and useful. Hopefully it's useful. Anyway, I'm absolutely beaming about this project. It was just what I needed. And I would say, you know, not as your first ever sewing project, but if you are an adventurous beginner, also, it doesn't have to fit. I think for new sewists, when you spend a lot of time making something and then it doesn't fit your body, it's very deflating. So when you make an accessory, it doesn't have to fit your body. You know, the straps are adjustable, and I mean, if you did it in a printed cotton, you maybe wouldn't notice the top stitching as much. So if that wasn't quite straight, it wouldn't really matter. I'm really happy I've used this wax cotton just because it will now be waterproof, and I think that for me that's really important because I don't know what I don't carry an umbrella and you don't know what weather you're going to get caught in. Anyway, so absolutely love this. I'm going to use it for the first time today, so that's really exciting. Alright, let's move on to my last sewing bit, which is, I mean, a little bit, well, very exciting, also a little bit embarrassing. So, this is Love Sewing Magazine, and they asked me to make for them this dress, which is Mccalls, where's the number? M7714. And I agreed ages and ages and ages ago, and then the sale of this house went through really quickly, and I had to go to have photos of my dress that I'd made taken the day after we moved house. So that was really stressful. So I made my little version. There I am with the editor. Oh, it's a little bit insane to be in a magazine. And there is my review on the pattern. So I wish I had it here to show you, but I don't. It's not my usual, I look modern. It's modern Christina. Oh, so funny. I used the Lisa Comfort fabric, which was sent to me from Minerva Crafts. It's the lilac colourway of the Busy Blossom Cotton Lawn. It is a lovely fabric, but anyone who's worked with a Liberty Tana lawn will know that although it's beautifully soft, it has a lovely crispness. So when you give it a press, you get a lovely sharp line. With this, there is zero crispness. In fact, to me, it felt more like it was a viscose or a bamboo based fabric than a cotton, just because of kind of that softness. But it was fun, and you know, I'm in a magazine. I'm in a magazine. Anyway, so I just thought I would share that. I thought you might enjoy. I don't really read sewing magazines. I think because I do sewing as my job, a lot of the small projects and little bits and pieces get lost on me. But for somebody else who doesn't who doesn't sew for part of their role, or maybe doesn't know so much about sewing, I think it's lovely. You've got so many different ideas, and there we are. There's Lauren of Guthrie and Ghani, and actually that's the same fabric, Millerain waxed cotton, just in a different colour. It's a really great fabric. Very difficult to press because it's very thick. So that was the only thing for me that I would not critique, but it would be the only flaw of the fabric. You know, it sews really well, it's really easy to cut, but pressing it with a domestic iron wasn't so easy. Anyway, so that's all the sewing that I've been up to. I want to get everything finished so that I can take part in the, I've written it down, the summer dress along, which is being hosted by Amy of the Little Tailoress and Molly of MollyKleindesign. And so that will encourage me, I think, to kind of get my act together and get some sewing done. I do like to make summer dresses. They're probably not the most practical thing for me to make, but they are my favourite thing to make. So yeah, definitely need to set some time aside and make, you know, 1 or 2 pretty summer dresses. And moving on to some knitting, I think. So I pulled out, just in the middle of the end weaving fiasco. So I showed these earlier in the year. These are my Pixel Rise socks. Pixel Rise or Pixel Rising? I'm unsure of its specific. I will write it down below. Anyway, so these were my Advent socks, and I put them away and not pulled them back out again. But there is the J and A rainbow along going on at the moment by Jooles of So Sweet Violet and Amy of the Little Tailoress, and so I think that these may be able to count for the rainbow along. It had to be a minimum of 5 colours, not the same colour in different shades, but different So I've got totally, you know, all different shades. A couple of them are the same. Purple, blue, red, green, yellow, orange. Yeah, I think these definitely can count. And they are very sweet and are accepting whips. So I've got the one that I did earlier in the year, and then I have indeed started the next one. So here we are, which I'm knitting out of my advent calendar minis, which were from Norah George, and I'm super happy with those. Oh, rogue sleeve. And I've got a couple of colours ready for the next couple of rows, next couple of blocks, and those I'm knitting on my Hiya Hiya sharps, which I knit everything on now. Those are my needles of choice, just in a little drawstring bag. And on it I've got this beautiful, let me get it really to focus nicely on there. So that's an enamel pin which Jooles sent to me so kindly, and it's a rainbow with the clouds are yarn balls, and the yarn balls are sparkly, just so lovely. I must say I've never had an enamel pin before, and I didn't quite get what the fuss was about. Oh, there we go. But this is just stunning. Absolutely beautiful. And every time I look at it, it's giving me a little smile. And she's done 2 pins on the one, so it doesn't twist round, which is, you know, attention to detail is, you know, that's Jooles, I think. All of her projects are so beautifully thought out. So I would expect nothing less. Anyway, have another look. It's pretty. So, yeah. I'm not very good with colour work, especially when you're changing colour so often, and I do them both in one hand. So I pick up and I knit with one colour, I drop that colour and pick up the next colour. I don't do two-handed, or the continental, where you put the 2 yarns across one finger and you're just picking up the one that you want. Which seems very clever, and I tried it, but it just didn't work at all. Oh, I've got one big project I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. I was going to start my beauty school pullover, but the designer Poison Girls has started a cowl, so I think that starts in a week and a half. So I've put that on pause. I didn't start it quite yet so that I can take part in the cowl. So instead I cast on the Chuck Sweater by Andy Satterland, which I'm knitting in Cascade 220. I can show you the full band. Colour 2401, which I believe was called Burgundy on the, where did I buy it? Wool Warehouse. Yeah. I've got 4 skeins. I've got my last 2 left. Got 1 on each sleeve. So it's a cabley. Sorry, I've got some rogue yarn. All right. It looks very red, but it's very deep. I feel like this is kind of the colour. There we go. That's kind of more of a true kind of deep burgundy. Anyway, so you've got 3 cables. You've got 1 little one on each side, and then that quite impressive one in the middle. I did make a big mistake, which was, where was it? Okay, so here, where they cross over, I had somehow missed the cross, and when I pulled it open, the 2 were separating instead of interlocking. So what I did was I just did a chain stitch on top. It's hard to see. It's a tiny bit lumpier than I would like, but it's really difficult to see. I mean, at the top you can see that's beautifully slim, and then it gets a little bit bulkier down here. And it wasn't out of laziness. I would have gone back and finished it, even though I had already bound off the waist. I just didn't know how to either. I could have frogged back, but I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to pull back in the middle of a cable. So I've just left it. Although now I've locked it and I pulled it out to the measurements I wanted, it has stretched but therefore shrunk in length. So I'm going to go back in and do between 1/2 inch and 1 inch more of rib, 1 by 1 rib on the bottom. And I did a folded over neckline, which I've seen Amy Florence of the Stranded podcast do quite often, and that was really nice to do. It gives a really, really professional finish, so I'm happy with that. So you can hear the jingle jangle of the needles. I've got 2 sleeves on the go at the same time. I think I've got quite a way left to go on both of them actually. I always make my sleeves quite short. I prefer a 3/4 sleeve, but this is for autumn winter, so I'm definitely going to do a full length. Maybe 1.5 inches and then some ribbing. Anyway, so that's been knitting up very quickly. Very quickly. Really, really beautiful. I'm super happy with that. And I got one last thing I'd like to show you. And that is for my next project. So I would like to make a gift for my manager who is having a baby. She's having a little girl and she quite likes the vintage aesthetic. So I want to make this romper, and it's the Etive, I believe, E-T-I-V-E, Etive romper, by Rainer and Bear. They're Rainer and Bear on Instagram as well, and I think they sell the finished products, but they also sell 2 romper patterns. So I bought the Blue Faced Leicester DK, and there's the I don't know which one of those numbers is the colour. I'll put all the details down below. Then I got it in a mustard. I got 3 balls of each, which is way too much. And I know I said it's a girl, and then I bought some tealy colour, but she's not super gender specific, I don't think. So I think she'll be happy with those. And then I got a different West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious 20% Falkland wool, 30% British alpaca, which is really nice. Slightly minty, pale blue, slightly grey. So I thought the 3 of those. I don't know whether I would make 3 rompers. I'd also like to make maybe a bonnet, which would be really sweet. So we'll see. I'll make one in one colour, I'll make a bonnet in another colour. She may end up with 3 sets of bonnets and rompers, or just a mix and match set of, you know, a few different pieces, but really thought that was lovely. Oh gosh, and okay, I said one thing, but then one more thing. So I got my hands on one of these bags. This bag turned me into an absolute psychopath. I've tried to buy this fabric, but it's totally sold out. And it would appear the only person in the world who has any left is from the Eldenwood Craft podcast and shop on Etsy. So when she showed that she was going to be having an update and selling these, I had a little bit of a cartjacking war. I'm sure I cartjacked somebody. It's very stressful having timed updates, and I know there's all the different Etsy sellers and indie sellers do all different things. I'm very good at winning. I'm there, before the time the update's going to happen, and I'm refreshing, then I buy it and I've got all of my card details pre-saved, and then it's mine. So I did it at work in the little kitchen, and yeah, I was very vocal. I think I might have scared a few people, but I won. It's a beautifully made bag, so I can't wait for autumn to come when I can start using that. Anyway, that is all for now. If you would like to find me on Instagram, I'm Gussets and Go Days. I am on Ravelry as well as Gussets and Go Days. I have tried to make a group for the podcast, and I think I've succeeded on Ravelry, so it's there. I can't remember what I called it, the Gussets and Go Days podcast, I'm sure. It's there, hopefully. It's very confusing, Ravelry. I use it like a pattern library really most of the time. So you can always find me there. I opened a question thread and another thread. I can't remember what it was. Nope, it's gone. Anyway, they're the only places that I am, other than here on YouTube. So thank you so much for watching. It means so much to me, and lovely catching up with you today. Have a lovely knitty and crafty week, and hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you so much.